Hi everybody, welcome to this afternoon's Women in Recruitment webinar. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm just waiting for everybody to start logging on, which is great. Lots and lots of people joining this afternoon, really exciting. Can't wait to get the conversation going with Chi. So today we welcome back Chi. She's been a guest on our Women in Recruitment webinar series already this year, a few months ago. And Chi has joined us today to talk about Black History Month and how important it is to recognise the achievement and success, especially in our sector of Black and brown women. She's got a stellar recruitment career behind her. She totally understands our industry and our sectors. She's currently an associate director with Macmillan Davies, and she earlier this year founded an organisation called Allyship, which she's going to tell you all about. She's been super busy. I've been watching Allyship go from strength to strength over the last 6 months. I'm so proud of you, Chi.
Thank you, Jo.
You know, I'm really pleased that you could join us this afternoon to talk about something really important. I'm super interested in what you're going to talk about, and I'm sure everybody that's joining is as well. So over to you, Chi. Do you want to give us a recap of your work? Tell us again about Allyship. And we want to know what you've been up to over the summer.
Yeah, definitely. Hello everyone, happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Jo, for having me again. It really is exciting. I can't believe it's October already. You know, the year is just going by so quickly. So I am Chi to my friends. My full name is Chikere Igbokwe, and as Jo mentioned, I currently work for Macmillan Davies. I recruit mid to senior level HR professionals into a number of sectors. I'm also extremely passionate about diversity and inclusion and the role that recruitment plays. I think we have a very important role of shaping organisations and making a difference. 2020 has been a year and a half for everybody. It's just been so difficult. Sometimes I feel like I'm not waking up from a nightmare. You know, I wake up and it's the same churn of 2020 with COVID-19, obviously with the whole injustices of racism, Black Lives Matter movement. I just feel, you know, when will this ever come to end? But I'm continually reminded that this will definitely end soon. I founded Allyship, that's www.allyship.co.uk, a couple of months ago, because I just felt that we needed a space for allies to actually, you know, take action. I think it was really important that we do that. And if a lot of you don't know what an ally is someone who uses their power and privilege to advocate for others, and allies are not part of the same marginalised groups. So I founded that, and I think for me the key thing is I really do want to make a difference. I want to make the voices of the unrepresented heard. I want allies to ensure that their voices are amplified. So yeah, so for me it's been quite a busy year, it's been quite a hectic year, but you know, this will come to pass, and you know, change is definitely happening.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I'm hoping.
Fingers crossed.
I forgot to mention, she's completely open to answering any questions that you might have at the end of our Q&A. So please just pop those in chat or the Q&A section, and I'll put those to you, Chi, afterwards. So I want to start off with asking you a question that I wasn't sure about asking you, but you're really comfortable with. So how do you feel about being asked to explain Black History Month?
How do I feel about it? Okay. Black History Month has been around for years and years and years. I was quite surprised that a lot of people hadn't heard about it, and people were constantly asking me what it means. This year it has obviously gained significant prominence because of the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and because of all the injustices that we see daily, be it, you know, at work or on the streets, in our lives. So I think for me, I don't mind talking about Black History Month. I think as long as I can raise awareness of the cause and what it means and educate people, I'm fine. I've written a few things down, but when we talk about Black History Month and what it means, I guess for me, Black History Month is a journey of education and discovery for all. And it's a journey of education and discovery for me as a Black woman, and for other Black and brown women, and obviously for you and the audience, okay? And I feel it's just important that we talk about Black History Month, we recognise it like everything else, and we hopefully celebrate it. You know, when we talk about race is not an easy conversation to have, as we all know. We all find it quite difficult. I find it difficult as a Black woman talking about race. So, you know, Black History Month is a journey that we're all on. And as I said, it's a journey of education and discovery.
And why do you feel that it's recognising Black History Month is becoming more and more important for us, especially in the UK?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, Black and brown voices have been hidden for so many hundreds of years. You know, when we look at enslaved people and the slave trade and the, you know, the empire and the history of the UK, you know, I was born and bred in the UK, I went to school, and we're not taught about the history. And I think, you know, a lot of Black history is either, you know, very, very negative or hidden away. So I think Black History Month really does raise the profile of the, you know, of what Black and brown people have done in the world, and hopefully not always negative. There are lots of amazing stories that we can celebrate, you know, all the time. And I think BBC is definitely flying the flag at the moment. BBC 4 and BBC 2 have had some amazing historical programs on, and they're not all negative. So, you know, definitely hop onto iPlayer and see what's there. But, you know, we are all educating ourselves.
And I think is it the 13th year that we're celebrating Black History Month?
Yeah.
But this year feels different.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
it's a lot more visible, as it should be. What's contributed to that?
Yeah, I think definitely, you know, COVID-19 has definitely highlighted the injustices. And sometimes I think, even though COVID-19 has been absolutely awful, would we be having this discussion? Would any of us be having the race discussion? So I think, you know, the injustices, George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement, and, you know, I think the Black Lives Matter movement is just incredible and powerful because of all our voices. So if we look at the movement, for example, it's just not Black against white, it's everybody against the injustices. And I think that's why it's so powerful. So I think that the reason why it is extremely, Black History Month is extremely prominent this year is because of all that, and also because a lot of organisations, and I just really hope this is not performative, but a lot of organisations are trying to say, yes, you know, we're celebrating Black History Month, we're doing things to recognise it. You know, not everything that's being done is great, but at least, you know, it's definitely a discussion point, and we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit later on as well. It almost feels like we've been given the luxury of time, and we've got more space to think and consider, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. We're all at home, aren't we? We've been at home for goodness knows when. We had lockdown, we were stuck inside. You know, we were panicky, we were scared, we were constantly consuming information, because I was listening to the news on the hour and stressing myself out and getting completely stressed out about, oh my gosh, I don't want to get COVID, I don't want to die, oh my goodness, you know, this injustice that's happening as a Black person, why am I feeling even more vulnerable now? So we're consuming more information. So everything just seems to be highlighted, you know, even more. And you said we have got the luxury of time, and it's a case of, as I said before, and I'm going to mention it again, you know, if not for COVID-19, you know, we wouldn't be having this race discussion, because last year, you know, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, Joe, and I'm sure you will agree with me, it was, you know, race very rarely got the look in. It was more gender, sexual orientation, disability, you know, very rarely did we speak about race, but now we're talking about race. So surely that's a good thing. That really is.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you've got a really good point. What obstacles do you feel that Black and brown women have faced throughout history? I know that's a massive question, isn't it? But what stories of women really resonate with you? You know, what do you talk to your children about? What do you talk to people about?
You know, apart from sexism, you know, being female is hard enough. You know, I'm proud to say I'm a feminist. You know, I love being a female. I've got 2 sons, and I make sure they know that mummy's a feminist, and they know how to treat women. I come from a line of very, very strong Black women as well. You know, my grandma Esme, and I've got a picture of her. And when I talk about her, Jo, I get very, very emotional, because especially now, I look at the picture of her, and I'll show you guys a picture shortly, and I can't imagine what she went through. So this is my grandmother. This is Grandma Esme on her wedding day in the Caribbean. She was part of the Windrush generation. So she came over in the 60s. She was a nurse, and she worked in Southampton as a nurse, as a psychiatric nurse. And imagine, she came over in the 60s when it was incredibly racist. She came over to help the empire rebuild after the war. She was invited over, as we know the Windrush story. She left her children in the Caribbean. She came by herself, and so she left my mother and my uncle and my aunt, and she came over, and she suffered. She really did. And I really do admire her, because she was a strong Black woman, you know, whose voice was probably never ever heard. You know, and she didn't get the opportunities that she really did deserve. That even though she worked in Southampton in a hospital, she faced an awful lot of racism. She was a qualified NHS nurse. She gave back to the NHS like a lot of people do, and we know how important the NHS is today. But she suffered from racism, sexism, from both Black and white people. She remarried, and her husband wasn't particularly great, and he used to be not very, very nice to her. So, you know, I definitely admire her, because she, you know, for me, was always a very loving, caring grandmother, and a very, very strong Black woman, you know. And I think for a lot of Black women, our voices are not heard. A lot of Black and brown women, our voices are not heard. And I think it happens every single day. And that's why I founded Allyship, because we need you all, allies, to amplify the voices of Black and brown women. I think it really, really is important. To do
Why do you think we're still in this situation where you feel like that?
Because I think, first and foremost, race is one of those topics that is just, you know, people don't want to talk about it. Secondly, you know, I think we don't have enough representation within organisations. I think if you look at, you know, the top levels of many organisations, unfortunately, they are middle-aged white men who just don't understand, unfortunately. And I think without that representation, I think we'll be having this conversation for a very, very long time. And if you look at a lot of organisations in the city, in London, in the UK, around the world, the representation is not there. So until we have those different voices at the table, we're constantly going to be suffering from racism and sexism, and our voices are not going to be heard.
I mean, it's incredible to think, isn't it? You've just shared that story about you know, your grandma. Thank you. Great picture as well. Beautiful in a wedding dress. And you know, I guess she would have really hoped that generations on from her, you know, her granddaughter, her great grandchildren wouldn't share the same injustice that she experienced coming over to the UK.
Yeah, exactly.
To contribute so much to our society as well.
Exactly. And I think, you know, that generation, you know, their voices, you know, I guess they just wanted peace. They just wanted to come over, do what's done. They took all the abuse and all the rest, you know, and they just carried on, you know. But I think today's generation, that is very much diverse, you know, are not having that at all, which rightly so, I'm so happy about, because even when I look at my sons, their friends are Black, white, Asian, everybody in their group. And they, you know, everybody stands up for injustices, and that's what each and one of you have got to do. You've got to stand up for your Black colleagues, your Black employees, your Black friends, and you really have to be change makers and create opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, it's everybody's responsibility, isn't it?
Definitely.
Absolutely. So apart from your grandma, are there any other incredible Black and brown women that
definitely. My mum as well. My mum's pretty amazing, you know, again, very, very strong. You know, I come from a long line, as I said, of very strong women. I've got 2 sisters, and, you know, just incredible, loving, supportive. Also, I don't know if you guys will recognise this picture, you know, she's my friend. I can call this person at any time.
That's quite something. I wish she was my friend.
You know, jokes aside, I think
See,
Michelle.
I can remember when she was in London.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I went to see her. So a lot of you surely have this book Becoming. And
amazing book.
Where was it again? Royal Festival Hall. Royal Festival Hall. And I went down there. I couldn't get tickets. My husband got me a ticket, surprisingly, and he phoned me up at work. I think we were at work. And he said, Chi, get ready. Guess where you're going? So I, excitedly trotted down. And she, she is an inspiration. She was First Lady. And if you can imagine what she went through, so I love her, I admire her. And when I went to see her, she was being interviewed. I haven't got her book here, but she was being interviewed by one of my best authors, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She is a Nigerian American author. So she's Nigerian, she lives in America. She's a feminist and she is pretty incredible. And she was being interviewed, Bishop Obama was being interviewed by her. So I was in heaven because I had these two Black women who I just absolutely worshipped and adored in front of me. So that was pretty amazing.
If there's a book to read as a woman, I couldn't put that book down. I think I read it in 2 days.
Yeah, and also,
Michelle for President.
Michelle for President. She's got a podcast out as well. I'm not sure if you know, Spotify, and also on Netflix. They've got The Becoming, the documentary. That was pretty incredible.
So what about in the recruitment industry then? Is there anybody that stands out to you? Any women, Black or brown women in the recruitment industry that have been that inspiration? I can kind of imagine what your answer is going to be here.
I don't know if I can say this. I feel ashamed and embarrassed to say no. No. Who? I can't think of anybody in my field. Nobody. It's just absolutely shocking,
And why do you think? Why? I mean, taking it down to gender, why do you think that women, Black and brown women, face these obstacles? Why do we not have the same number of Black and brown women role models that we do?
I just think
men.
It's the same as in every single organization. Why don't we have that representation within the business? When you are hiring candidates, employees, where are you reaching out for them? How diverse is your talent pool? Why are you hiring the same type of people? There's no diversity. There's no diversity of thought. So that's the problem that every single organization is facing, is that they all hire the same type of people, unfortunately. And that's probably why.
It's that fundamental change that's needed.
Who's going to be brave enough to hire somebody who is different, who's got a funny name, who's going to be brave enough to do that? Which organization? And that's the problem. We just don't have the representation. And a lot of the time, when we work in organizations, we are always the only one. I've always been the only one a lot of the times, and it just drives me crazy. I've always been that only person.
And what can we, what can we actually do if there's business leaders that are dialing in today, that this is really resonating with them? What's your advice? What would you say? What can we do to, turn the dial on this?
I think they all have to wake up, and they all need to look at the way they're hiring candidates. Okay. In terms of, where are they advertising the roles? Okay. They're in terms of even representation. When they get this person, this Black or brown woman into their organization, can she, or even, let's talk about men as well, can they see themselves, going up, progressing? Remember, when you look at C-suite level within an organization, can I see someone who looks like me? Can I actually say, oh, one day I wouldn't mind being partner. One day I wouldn't mind being CEO. One day I wouldn't mind being, managing director. There's no point getting people in the organization. Do I feel like I would belong in the organization? That's another thing, because a lot of the times you work for these places and you don't feel like you belong there because nothing is happening to actually, help. So, it's a case of, really reaching out. I think if organisations really want to make positive change, and if all these messages and sounds that they're making are not performative, it's a case of what are you doing to actually ensure that black and brown people that are being attracted into the organisation are nurtured, are looked after, and can actually progress, you know, what is being done. If everybody at the top table looks the same, then, you know, we're going to be having this conversation in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
And do you think, I mean, as a black woman, is this something when when you're looking into a business, when you've made your choices and recruitment businesses that you've chosen to work for, are you looking for evidence of this as a candidate? Are you asking them about what does your diversity and inclusion policy look like, especially the inclusion piece?
You know,
are you looking at what they're recognizing throughout the year?
You know something? That should be a fundamental question that we all ask, Jo. Do you see what I mean? But I can hold my hand up that no, because to be fair, Jo, if I had to change jobs tomorrow, more than likely, wherever I go, I'm not going to see the representation. Seriously, think of all the recruitment firms you deal with, all your members, you know, I'm not going to see the representation. And a lot of the time, even when I'm recruiting for organisations, I'm not going to see, there's very little representation. Maybe, you know, bottom, but, you know, at the lower junior level, but there's very little, you know, representation. So no, but it is definitely something that should be asked.
And when we're looking at our graduate intakes, when we're looking at our early talent, making sure that if you can't make that step change at the top of the organisation, it's about, as you say, attracting, nurturing and growing diverse talent from the get-go, and supporting everybody through that development process.
And you really have to. And you're right, you know, if you can't, you know, change your mid to senior hires, let's start at grassroots. Let's start attracting, you know, black and brown candidates at graduate level, you know, that graduate intake, and let's start nurturing them and mentoring them, you know.
Yeah, and I think, you know, any business who can demonstrate that authentic commitment to inclusion and have inclusive recruitment processes throughout they're going to be landing the talent. They're going to be landing diverse talent, and their businesses are then going to in turn become more diverse than their competitors, right?
Exactly. And surely that is a plus. Surely it is. But I think the problem is that it's so difficult, Jo, that a lot of organisations just find this so difficult. They're hoping that this is going to go away, and it's a case of, where do I start? You know, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it, you know. So, you know, it's a case of, you know, where do they start? So
a celebration, recognition like Black History Month could be the beginning.
Definitely. I'll definitely say it is.
And it needs to be authentic though, doesn't it? Absolutely critical. I mean, I've seen various things on social media, activities, posts, etc., images, graphics, recommendations. What would you be? Yeah, I'm seeing a massive improvement this year. There's a lot more thought gone into it. It seems more authentic. But what are you expecting to see from businesses that openly celebrate and recognise Black History Month?
Yeah, definitely.
What's standing out?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, I don't want it to be performative. I don't want them to do it because everyone else is doing it and they've got to do it. I want it to be authentic. I really do. I think the prime example of that, you know, Sky, you know, when you have the menu, they've got like a little Black History Month section on there. And I think they're showing all the films and documentaries. And sometimes some of these Black films, you know, they're just so difficult to watch, even for me as a Black woman, talk less of anyone else.
Well, we were talking about this earlier before.
We were talking about it, like some of those slave films. I'm sorry, I don't want to watch another slave film. I don't want to see how my ancestors suffered. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I think 2020 has been a nightmare of a year anyway. I don't want to see that. Why can't I see a normal Black film? And I think, Jo, I wrote this down, but I don't want to forget it. I know Netflix have got lots of really good content, and yes, you've got to search for it, but I think I mentioned this film to you. It's just a normal film, guys, and it just so happens the cast is all black, okay, and it's called Fatal Affair. I think, Joe, you were saying that you'd seen it, and it's just about a professional black woman who bumps into an ex-flame, and then he starts to stalk her. So sometimes we just want to watch normal films, do you know what I mean? And I think everyone does, and there are quite a few films, just normal films that we'd like to watch. But I think sometimes organisations have got to be careful what they actually put or display up, because we and that's everyone, both black, brown, white people, we just don't want, I just think the narrative, we just don't want to keep seeing negative images. We are educating ourselves, and everyone is, hopefully, and we know about the issues of slavery. And if you don't know about it, guys, you really do need to go and find out about it. It's not for me as a black woman to tell you about slavery or the way the British Empire was built. There's a great documentary on Sunday, and I'll tell you about that later. But sometimes I just feel that I don't want to keep watching a slave film. I don't want to keep seeing negative images of black and brown people on TV, because I'm sick and tired of it. And I think that really does help shape biases that a lot of people have. It's almost like, oh, look at that poor black or brown woman again, or that poor black or brown child. I think charities are really, they do this a lot, charities. A lot of those charity adverts, it's always a poor African child who is starving in Africa, and a white saviour comes and saves them. And some of the times it's just too much. You even get black British kids. I remember my kids thought that my black sons, when they were younger, didn't want to go to Africa because they thought every single child in Africa was starving or dying. Do you know what I mean? So I just think I think organisations have got to be careful with the narrative that they're putting out. That negative narrative. Even though I know they're trying to do something good, I just think that narrative has, you just have to be really careful.
So what could a recruitment business do? A lot of our members are small, medium-sized recruitment businesses. Limited resources, limited time. I think sometimes this stuff starts with the first steps, doesn't it? The foundation. What could some of our members be doing, putting in place?
Yeah.
We've got 3 more weeks to go.
Definitely. So for example, I think the key thing is, having a D&I statement. I know it's and it may take time to do, but I think it's important, because at the end of the day, you are recruiting staff for multinational businesses who expect you to be accountable, and who expect you to ensure that that you are providing them with a diverse shortlist and pool of candidates. What I am doing in my industry, so I recruit mid to senior level HR professionals, and rather than focusing on the lower level, I have decided to interview a number of senior HR leaders, and they're very, very light-hearted. They're 10 questions, and it starts with what time do you wake up and what's your routine, and it goes talks about their career, and the last question is all about what podcast or books or films can you recommend. Just really, really simple. And the whole idea is just to ensure that people see that there are senior HR black leaders out there. It's just simple, just very, very simple. You can do that in whatever sector that you are recruiting into. If you recruit into finance, you can do that. If you recruit into tech, highlight the senior leaders in your industry. We've got 3 weeks. You can trickle feed this down on your social media feed. That's a really, really good start. On Allyship, on the Allyship platform, what have I done? I have reached out to allies and black and brown people, and allies have just written things on a sheet of paper and just spoken about, what they are going to do. So things like, I'm going to amplify the voices of black and brown people. And then a black and brown person has done the same thing, written on a sheet of paper what I want allies to do. So for example, what did I write? I think I wrote things like, I want you as an ally to educate yourself. Just simple things. I want you to listen. I want you to acknowledge your privilege. So just really, really simple things you can do. And you can just start that way, really. And obviously, if you have got any minority black and brown recruitment consultants within your business, why don't you ask them to take part?
I was gonna say who should be who should you be collaborating with?
I think
is it okay to approach people across your business?
I think so. I think this should be everywhere. I think we should all do it. This is just not one person's problem. So don't let that poor little black or brown person within your business take charge. You know, this should be everyone doing it. And if you look, as I said to you before, Joe, if you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, it's everybody fighting the injustice of racism. When we saw them pulling down the statue in Bristol, I think it was a white person that pulled it down. So this is everybody doing it. So don't feel that you can't ask anyone to do it. Please do. Go ahead and ask, you know, if you're not sure, reach out. You know, I'm on LinkedIn, you know, please ask me. I'm more than happy to give you some ideas or say, you know, yes, you can do this or no, you can't.
But I guess it's going back to that authenticity piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you're not, you've got to be really careful, haven't you? I think, you know, you can't be making big, bold external statements if that's not being driven by or influenced by what you're doing internally within your business.
And I think that is the problem, because I think a lot of organisations are not doing it, and they haven't done it, and they haven't even started. Do you know what I mean? Some of them don't they don't even have a D&I strategy. You know what I mean?
But it's actually okay, isn't it, to be really open and say, we're not ready to start having that conversation externally this year, because internally we want to start something that's going to have a long-term impact.
Totally, and that's fine. And I'd rather they do that rather than putting something out that ends up, you know, just awful, or putting something out like that's just performative, that's not real. So, you know, it's okay, but as long as you start the journey to do something, I think that's
and what do you think our candidates are going to be looking for? Because they're going to be watching us as recruiters, aren't they?
Definitely. And I think, you know, recruitment firms, I think candidates will hold recruitment firms accountable, just like how our clients will as well. You know, it's a case of, what are you doing to provide me with a diverse shortlist of candidates? Do you see what I mean? How are you using your voice? You know, when you're putting together those pitches, and when we talk about, you know, diversity and inclusion, are you just talking about gender or sexual orientation, which is right? You know, are you actually ticking off everything else as well? You know, so, you know, I think, you know, we are definitely being looked at to be change makers and to create positive change, because we really do have the ability to, you know, shape the way an organisation is. We really do. And
there are a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of ideas. I mean, obviously, Allyship website, that's got some great resources on it. There's a lot of potential to be authentic and creative, and actually definitely roll out activity that will make a difference. Will it educate?
Exactly. I think the key thing is, I think, as I said before, this is everybody's issue, and I think try not to put the onus on someone else. And I think you really need to start with educating yourself. And how do you do that? You need to get reading. And there's some brilliant books out there, and I've recommended this book. I'm reading it at the moment as well. It's called White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. Start with that. It's on Audible as well. So, you know, maybe if you're just going for your walk or you're going for a run, this book is fantastic. This really, really is. And this really is a book that I suggest everyone should read. You know, so when we talk about education, please do that. And there's another one called Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. Hope you can see this. This is another one, guys. Get reading, get educating yourself, because you can't have these conversations with anybody if, number one, you don't feel comfortable about it, and number two, if you just don't know what to say. Okay? So rather than putting rather than saying the wrong thing, I think the key thing is get educating yourself. And I think, you know, don't think that your black or brown colleague or employee is there to educate you. You really have to get educating yourself. I think for me, that's the key thing. You know, you really have to take onus. You really do.
Great. Thanks for those book recommendations.
No worries.
So we are 1 week in to Black History Month. We've all got 24 hours, but if we've been given 24 hours to go back to our businesses and do something that's going to have an immediate impact, what are your top tips? What can we go back to our businesses with and on Monday put into place and make sure it starts happening?
I think start the conversation. I think that's the simplest thing that anyone can do. Start having that conversation. I would definitely start buying some books, you know, start reading over the weekend, and maybe on Monday morning you can rock up all confident and start having that conversation. Start having the conversation with your CEO, your hiring man, your manager, the person you report into. start having that conversation. You know, that's the key thing. You know, I think it's a case of, you know, this is not going to go away. This is a conversation that we will be having for the next couple of years until things are changed. I think it's so funny because I was speaking to a few people and like, oh, you know, this is going to die down in a couple of months. Oh no, it's not going to die down in a couple of months. This is something that is there for, you know, forever. And I think we do need to change, you know, working, for example, if we look at the London market, it's already made diverse talent pool of candidates. And it's a case of, why aren't your candidates?
We still struggle in London.
We still struggle, and I think we still say, oh, there's no diverse candidate, there's no black candidate. Are you guys kidding me? You know. So I think the key thing, the first thing you have to do this weekend, get some books, have a look at my website, Allyship. You know, as I said to you, I'm more than happy if you guys want to reach out. More than happy to have discussions. But I think first and foremost, you know, get yourself reading, and then start having a conversation on Monday.
And also, you can, I mean, there's a lot of employers doing some incredible work. I mean, my husband works for NatWest Markets. Every day he's giving the lowdown of the webinars he's watching.
Oh, wow.
You know, he switches on his computer and it's just, you know, covered in, you know, quotes and literature, and it's a real celebration for the entire month. You know, NatWest Markets are using this to educate their employees. There's a real call to action. Yeah. And I think, you know, we're going to be speaking to a lot of clients. You know, we're looking for reasons to engage, and, you know, to acknowledge one of your clients and employers' contribution, the work that they're doing, the progress they're making, and start. It's a really good place to start that conversation, to pick up the phone, to speak to clients. You know, we were really interested in your journey. I've noticed this on your website. One of my candidates told me about this. There's a lot to talk about, isn't there, at the moment? And you can really use this as a conversation starter.
Exactly. And I think also, you know, it's been a tough year for everyone. Recruitment business has really taken a hit. So if this really does open up a conversation with a client you've been trying to get in with for such a long time, why not? And I think where everyone's at home, now is quite an easy way just to, you know, make contact with clients and just have that discussion. And you're right, a lot of organisations are doing some really, really great things, whilst others haven't really started on the journey. But, you know, I'm sure they will at some point.
Great. I'm just looking to see if we've got any questions in. If you've got any questions for Chi at all, please do put them in the Q&A or chat. But Chi, we'll be passing on your details to everybody.
Definitely. And whilst
I was going to say
resources. Afua Hirsch, who's amazing. So her father is white Jewish and her mother is from Ghana, Black African from Ghana. And she is doing an awful lot to drive conversation and education. And she's written a book called British on race, identity and belonging. So that's another really great one, okay? And for those of you who really want education, Afua Hirsch, I've written it down, here we go. She, on BBC 2 on Sunday at 9 o'clock, she's teamed up with Samuel L. Jackson, and she's doing a documentary about the slave trade called Enslaved. So I think that would be quite a nice historical, educational documentary. So that's really, really great. Do you know what I would suggest as well? I think, you know, there's so many Black authors who write about normal things. There's Bernardine Evaristo. Joe, have you heard of Bernardine Evaristo? She recently wrote Girl, Woman, Other. I think she won a couple of prize. She won a prize with Margaret Atwood, a joint prize. Her book is one of the, you know, really top bestsellers. That's really, really, really good. What else have I got here? There is a Black feminist author who so happens to be, she was a really good friend with my uncle, but if you Google her, she is huge. She died, I think when did she die? 2017. But again, she just writes about normal things. Her name is Buchi Emecheta, and she just writes about normal everyday things, and her books are really, really, really good, okay? My favourite author, who I said interviewed Michelle Obama, there she is, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's a feminist. Her books are huge at the moment. Some of you may know her, some of you may not, but definitely have a look at some of her literature. I just think you just need to really, really educate yourself. And at the moment, I'm really into poetry, Joe, for some weird reason. And there's a guy called, an African-American guy called Jericho Brown, and he's written a book, a poetry book called The Tradition. And I'm reading his poetry at the moment, and that's really, really good, especially now, you know, with our mental health and everything. It's just nice just to sit back and just, you know, read a few things. And lastly, David Olusoga, who is a Black historian, I think he's a lecturer at the University of Manchester. He again has been on BBC recently, and he's written a number of books. He's written one called Black and British, A Forgotten History. David Olusoga. That's really great to educate yourself, guys. You know, so get educating yourself. And, you know, if any of you have any Black or brown or minority colleagues, I'll say, you know, get talking to them, you know, go out. Well, we can't go out at the moment, but, you know, I just think, you know, when we can, let's go to the pub with them. You know, there's no point. A lot of people, unfortunately, say they don't have any Black or brown friends, which I find quite incredible because I have lots of white friends. But, you know, let's just get interacting with people. I think it really, really is important.
Yeah, great recommendations there. Thank you. We've got a couple of questions that have come through. How did you gain the confidence to speak on such an awkward topic? I always struggle to talk on this as I am also the only Black woman in my team. Thank you. You're very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. How did I gain? I think it's taken a long time for me to be at this stage, and
you've really found your voice this year, haven't you?
I've really found my voice this year. And the reason being, why have I found my voice this year? I found my voice this year because it's just been a really tough year for me. I really would say that in terms of, you know, starting a new job. Starting a new job, for example, that's been really, really difficult. I was on furlough for a while. I think I was really moved by the Black Lives Matter movement, and I was really worried. I was worried about my children, my sons, who are now grown up. They're no longer two little cute Black boys anymore. They're now considered a threat, especially when they go out. I had people talking to me all the time and saying, you know, Chi, what can we do? And I just feel my voice was hidden for such a long time. And I just felt I had to do something now. It's now or never. I've got to make a change. Also, I'm really blessed and lucky that I have some amazing friends, and I'm talking to one now, Joe, and I think, Joe, you've always been really, really inspirational, and you've really been authentic. And I think the thing about allies, guys, is an ally will amplify the voices of minority groups. And ever since I've known Joe has always amplified voices of minority, be it gender, be it, you know, your race. Joe has always done that. But the reason why I feel comfortable talking about it now is because it's now or never. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to make a change for my children, for my children's children, and for your children. And if I don't speak up about it now, you know, nothing's gonna change. And I really am trying to use my voice to create positive change and to create a safe platform. And that's what allyship's all about. But it's still really, really difficult, and I still get really emotional, and I'm still on that journey, guys. And I just really hope that I'm making a difference somehow. Somehow I'm making a difference.
You are, absolutely. An absolute asset as well to your recruitment business. I mean, wow. It's you're always so super impressive, and I just love everything about you, Chi. I always have done, and I think that, you know, you're very, very vocal, really articulate, and your message is super strong. And you take everybody with you on the journey, which is the most important thing.
Which is Joe, it's so important. Like, as I said to you, you know, my friends are everybody, and I'm not just saying this. You know, my friends are Black, they're white, they're Asian, they're Chinese. They are everybody. So more than likely, you will see that my contacts and colleagues and friends are everybody. So I don't find it so difficult to talk to people about these things. But you're right, race is such a difficult thing to talk about. But this year, I have definitely found my voice. And that's better.
It's better to talk about it.
Yeah, you have to talk about it
in a safe space where you've got permission to. You might stumble, you might say the wrong thing, but it's better to talk about it and to have in a safe space where somebody can put you on the right track than just ignore it and be scared of talking about it because you know, you're not comfortable and you feel a bit clumsy. There was a question that came in that's a really interesting one, actually, that I could talk for hours on. And this was kind of, it's really interesting. This kind of question had started me on one of my, on my journey in my previous recruitment business. Beyond the usual websites, can you give specific suggestions of where to advertise to attract more Black and brown candidates? And this is a massive question. So I'd like to also be part of the answer, but over to you. It's your, it's your webinar.
We can answer it together, okay? So how have I found Black and brown or just diverse candidates? I think we have an amazing platform, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an amazing platform. And what I have done, I've got a number of groups, okay, that attract these diverse candidates. Do you see what I mean? And I think also for me, because I'm constantly putting out content, it's almost like the stuff I do is a magnet. So it is attracting those people. But what I would say is, because it's so difficult, because all the job boards out there, there are very few diverse job boards, aren't there? That's something I just don't understand why we don't have that many,
I think it's because it's such a small part of the solution. It's, you could spend thousands on advertising on a job board that just attracts a certain group of people. But then if you've not if your recruitment process isn't inclusive, if you as a recruiter don't represent that diversity of those candidates, if candidates don't feel confident that you would be able to represent them because you don't look like them, you don't sound like them, you're not from their world.
No.
If your client doesn't have an authentic commitment to D&I and doesn't do any activity, you could have a short list of 85% Black or brown candidates. They get to interview. The recruitment process isn't inclusive. They're seeing an all-white interview panel. They can't talk about their commitment to diversity. They can't give examples of inclusivity.
Exactly.
And that candidate, that Black woman is sat in front of an all-white male panel, wondering, how difficult is it going to be for me to get my voice heard here?
Exactly.
So there's so many different moving parts of diverse hiring, isn't there? Yes, there are job boards, but it's not going to work if you haven't got everything else in place.
Really have to start planting the seeds. You really start to have, I guess building that community, whereby, as Joe said, whereby you try and start attracting. I think looking at websites as well, it's like looking at your business website. What is on your website to tell me that if someone that looks like me applies for a job, you really are going to try and, I guess, ensure that I feel happy and safe when you put me forward. So I think there's lots of things, but we can have a further discussion about that if you want. Really, please feel free to reach out.
There are some organisations doing some great things. An organisation that that I can personally recommend is an organisation called Vasida. They are kind of becoming. They're doing more and more work. They've been around for a long time.
Right.
They do many different things. When they do operate as a job board, but it's it's pan diverse. So it's but what they do is when they work with a client, they make sure that it's not just the front end stuff. It's they are looking at everything else, all the different elements of making sure that hiring is diverse and inclusive, and they're placing candidates in organisations who have a commitment to D&I. But it's all about, as a recruiter, I think, being visible, talking about it, looking when your candidates look at your website, do they see people who represent them, or are they just seeing a sea of white faces?
Exactly.
Because it's all about, with any candidate, when you're looking at partnering with a recruitment business to represent you, especially, as you get towards this, the senior end of your career, it's all about representation. Who's in the best place to represent me as a candidate?
Exactly.
Regardless of any protected characteristic, let's face it.
I know.
So, if you're visible, if you're actively supporting and being an ally for Black and brown women, or Black and brown candidates, or people with a disability, or LGBTQ plus community, you're already speaking the same language as the candidate. They're going to trust you, and they're going to trust that you've also qualified your clients, which is the key piece. That's where it sometimes falls down, I found.
Exactly. Because I think also, you know, it's all jolly well and good, you know, getting the job and going into the organisation, but it's a case of, do I feel like I belong in that organisation? That's another thing. And I think a lot of the minority groups, we don't feel like we belong in organisations, you know?
Yeah, a D&I expert that I work with called Toby Milden, he once said to me, it's all about inclusion. I've got it on a post-it note: inclusion, belonging, and diversity.
So it is.
And that piece in the middle, the belonging piece, is everything. It ties the two together.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the key. It really does. So you will find that lots of minority candidates or employees will go into an organisation, don't last, because you just feel like you don't belong there. The organisation has done nothing to you know, make you feel like you have belonged.
Yeah,
so,
and candidates are holding clients to account now. They're going to interview, and they, you know, you've got a barrier in front of you because you're not a white man. You've got a barrier in front of you because you're black. You've got a barrier in front of you because you've got a disability, and it pushes you further and further back.
Yeah,
you know, the more characteristics you can apply to yourself.
Exactly.
And you what that. Clients almost got to evidence how they can guarantee that you're going to be successful in their business, because you're in a position now because of the support that you've had with your current employer. So they've got to convince you that they can provide you with the same opportunity.
Totally.
We could talk about this all day, but we're running out of time.
I know, it's a shame, really. It really
it
starts, as I said, it starts with educating yourself, because, you know, you've got to feel comfortable talking about race, okay, as well as everything else, as well as gender and sexual orientation, but you need to feel comfortable. And I think the problem is, if you don't feel comfortable, it's not going to happen. So start with educating yourself. And I said, more than happy, guys, reach out to me, let's have the conversation. More than happy for you to do that. But just get, you know, a few of those books, get them on Audible. If, you know, I think that's what I do. I listen to it and just go for walks. You know,
well, you've been absolutely amazing again. We've had some really nice messages through.
Thank you.
Saying incredible conversation, learned so much. Thank you for all the information on the films and the books that you've mentioned. Thanks for being so open. I feel so comfortable speaking to you, Chi. You create a really safe space.
Yeah.
And, you know, anybody who wants to talk more about this, I 100% recommend get in touch directly with Chi.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Jo.
you. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, being interested in this topic and really taking it seriously and giving us an hour of your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.